So when I got a call for this TED Talk today, there was no way I was going to turn it down. But it did mean, however, that out of the many things I do, I'd have to pick one to talk about. And how was I going to do that? It had to be a choice that genuinely spoke to me. It couldn't be a technical exercise. So then I thought, what has been the overriding theme of my life for the last 15 years? The theme that either cast its shadow or cocooned every area of my life. Be it Bollywood, conflict resolution, consultancy, my academic pursuits in psychotherapy, or even romantic relationships. So the theme was this, and it was a blessing or a curse depending on the circumstance. The theme was hiding. I was hiding myself away for the last 15 years in ways that were invisible to most. I'm Pravishi Das, and I'm an actor. How I arrived at wanting to be an actor, melodramatic as that might sound, was really a spiritual inquiry into the purpose of my life. But more of that on another day. I'm just a kid who grew up in Delhi in a family of professionals. My sister and I were raised and are still being raised by a single mother who worked in the travel and tourism industry and in the home of grandparents who knew nothing about show business. And there I was, all geared up to leave Delhi and enter into the unknown world of the Bombay film industry. Unafraid to chase my dreams and decided to go in full throttle. I went right in there. And my experience, contrary to the outside perception of the big bad world of Bollywood, was some of the most hardworking, talented, and sensitive people in this relentless business of overnight fame and success, along with overnight failure and ignominy. In the first 2 years of being in my Karm Bhumi, I got a lead part in a play that was to travel overseas for a month. It gave me my first trip abroad ever, my first glowing review, and also my first bouquet from a fan post the show. I landed parts in 4 of the biggest films at the time, and I also was selected for a national brand campaign for a very famous shampoo brand. So I found my face on bottles and billboards all over the country. And what do? Us non-nepotistic kids? I stood under a billboard in Bombay with my face on it and had my picture taken. I thought of the face on the billboard as the star and myself as the photobomber. And then came the game changer. My world was rocked by a health diagnosis. I was also in love, to add to the list of all fabulous things. It was a severe autoimmune disorder. The relationship broke, and my work came to a standstill. So in some senses, this was when the real adventure began. The adventure of being introduced to who I really am. Not as my mother's daughter, not as school captain, not as college Dramsoc president, not as a successful Delhi theatre actor, not as a Bombay newbie, and not as a girlfriend. Who am I, really, stripped of every worldly label and achievement? The core of me, was it strong or weak? Defeated or optimistic? These are ongoing questions with ongoing answers, forever evolving and changing, just like me. The one thing, though, that was constant, and my coping mechanism, was to hide myself away. And I did that. This was the tryst with my destiny. The adventure of being introduced to who I really am. So I refused to come back to Delhi. I did not meet my larger extended family for years together. And given the fragile world that is an actor's career, I could never let anyone know. They'd judge me. They'd not give me work. So on days on a shoot when I had to drive a car or run, I'd find that my knees were swollen or my ankles were swollen. On other days, my elbows were jammed or my fingers were hurting. I pushed through the pain. I cried out in agony in private. But boy, was I going to make sure that I did not let anyone ever know. In the dating world, I manifested self-sabotage. Because the thought was that if my beautiful boyfriend broke up with me on account of this, why would anyone else ever want me? I know better. But you can't help how your psychology gets wired after such events. So on a conscious level, I did go out on dates, but at a subconscious level, with a predetermined expiration date set in my head. And today when I think about it, how bizarre is it to fix yourself up for a future imaginary husband that may or may not even happen. And in the meantime, decimating my present and ruining my happiness. So on days that I wasn't feeling perfect or looking perfect, I hid. On days that I was filled with anger and jealousy and grief, I hid. I didn't want to be defined by this struggle, so I hid. I wanted the world to see me as so much more, so I hid. I hid and I hid and I hid and I hid. This daily hide and seek was traumatizing me and breaking me down. Hiding gave rise to another monster, one that I had never known before, anxiety. But then, it was owing to my practice of Nichiren Buddhism that I was constantly, but gently, nudged in the direction of continuing to believe in the dignity of my life and my highest potential, to never accept defeat even if the victory seemed elusive. So I chose. I chose to finally come out of hiding. I chose to stay in the room. At work, in the community, and even within our families, when we are challenged, humiliated, minimized, bullied, we self-select out of that business. We leave the room. I stand here today to urge you that no matter how long that breakthrough takes, to please stay in the room. I couldn't act in plays because there were days I couldn't even walk. So I watched them. I watched as many plays as I possibly could. And it was at one such theater of a play where I saw this tiny little poster on a wall. And that changed everything. I had an encounter. An encounter in existential humanism psychology is an authentic, congruent meeting between individuals, a direct confrontation, an emotional involvement characterized by mutual empathy and trust. This poster was tiny, but it held within it the power to change my life. Because an encounter has the power to change the trajectory of your thought and your feeling landscape, and therefore the trajectory of your entire life. This poster was a call for an aptitude test of sorts. Post the interview, I was picked up to work in the area of unconscious bias, diversity, inclusion, and conflict resolution with no background in the field. I traveled and worked to many different countries for 13 years and spoke with hundreds and hundreds of people about race, culture, sexual orientation, gender, and disability. It was the kind of work that I needed to heal. Interestingly, my most memorable conversation was aboard INS Kochi, the largest India-made warship and missile destroyer, when a very senior naval officer and war veteran said to me that my work in conflict resolution is perhaps the most important job in the world. Those were powerful and moving words. To be a unifying presence and to be a harmonizing presence everywhere you go is not a role you choose. It is the role that chooses you, only if you can wake up to it. This gift was not lost on me. It taught me to be the sun, S-U-N. Wherever you are, as who you are. To travel the world not as a tourist, but to really see it, to smell it, to touch it, to feel it. By deep diving into every nuance, every bias, every pitfall, every glory that these cultures and people have experienced is a treasure like no other. I was morphing into an activist performer with a strong desire to use my art and skill as an actor to serve humanity, even if on the smallest scale. Art therapist Stephen Levine says, allow me to quote, "The task of therapy is not to eliminate suffering, but to give a voice to it, to find a form in which it can be expressed. Expression is itself transformation, and that is the message that art brings." This idea took the pressure off and lifted the impersonator complex. Because I did not have to provide a solution. I just needed to start the conversation and keep it going with integrity. To give you an insight, let me share this. When your work embodies beauty, benefit, and good, the three values, it has the power to change your life in ways that you cannot imagine. So through my work in gender-based conflict, I had an epiphany. I realized that I suffered so deeply, not just because of the acute physical pain I was in, but because of the toxic societal trope that I had bought into, where women are objectified based on their physical appearance. I suffered because I thought I'm not good enough. I suffered when a close male friend of mine told me that, "Pravishi, a man wants a woman in his bed, not a political opinion." I suffered because I am fierce and I have an opinion. I suffered because I'm abundant with enormous amounts of love to give. I'm not one or the other, I am both. His comment made me lose sleep for 3 nights. But I have to say this. In order to truly accept myself, I needed to understand that everything is not all black or white. that demons are gender neutral, race neutral, privilege neutral. The list goes on. You cannot rank order suffering. So only when I truly accept that everyone is facing many shades of their own fundamental darkness, that we can truly come out of hiding ourselves. So let's not forget, men suffer too. Men are objectified too because of their bank balance. Just look around yourselves. The subliminal messaging all leans towards glorifying a toxic masculine culture. We raise our boys to not feel. We raise our boys to not cry, to be men. We raise our boys to not ask for help. Because if you ask for help, you're weak, of God or of a psychiatrist. Not every boy aspires to be a testosterone-driven alpha male. Let's allow our boys to be different kinds of men. Take a look at the statistics on suicides in India. According to the NCRB, the National Crime Records Bureau, in 2015, 68% of suicides were by men. And among married women, housewives accounted for 79% of them. So it's amply clear that both genders get the raw end of the stick when it comes to toxic masculinity. Globally, more men are committing suicides than women. Shouldn't we be asking ourselves why? Most data and evidence suggests that it is this adherence to a masculine identity that is a critical catalyst for male suicides. A study in Auburn University in the US identified emotional stoicism as one of the chief traits in acquired capability for suicide. Emotional stoicism. Think about it. Whom has hiding ever benefited? Hiding from the world, hiding from the truth, hiding from ourselves. So here I am. I'm not a technological wizard with an innovative new product. I'm an artist. I am the product. I don't have an idea to sell. I am the idea. I bring to you me, flawed, fierce, free, and no more in hiding. Thank you.